My name is Claire Bennett. I am 25 years old now. But the night that split my life in half happened when I was 15. Under the flickering lights of a Greyhound station just outside Tacoma, Washington. It was almost midnight. Cold enough that it did not just touch your skin. It got under it. I stood near the curb with a black trash bag full of clothes against my leg. A one-way bus ticket folded in my hand. And my phone on 3% battery. My father stood in front of me. Daniel Bennett. One hand on the open trunk of his car, the other pointing toward the glass doors of the station. Like I was luggage he had finally decided to leave behind. My stepmother, Marisa, stood beside him in a cream-colored coat she wore to church. She looked calm. That was the part that scared me most. She was not crying. She was not trying to stop him. She was not even pretending to feel bad. She just kept checking the time on her phone. Like abandoning a child was an errand that had already taken too long. At first, I thought my father was trying to scare me. Parents said things when they were angry. They yelled. They threatened. They said, "You are done living under my roof." Or, "You have no idea how good you have it." But they did not actually pack your clothes into a trash bag. They did not buy you a one-way ticket to a city where no one was waiting. They did not drive you 40 minutes away from home in silence, stop outside a bus station, and tell you that your life there was over. Except mine did. My father shoved the ticket into my hand and said, "You wanted to act grown? Then go be grown." I looked down at the destination. Portland. I did not know anyone in Portland. My mother had died when I was 8. Her family lived scattered across different states, and I had not seen most of them in years. Because my father said they brought up too much pain. I looked at him and asked, "Dad, where am I supposed to go?" He leaned closer, close enough that I could smell the coffee on his breath. Then he said something I would hear in my head for the next 10 years. "Tell anyone we abandoned you, and I will make sure they believe you ran." Behind him, Marissa gave a small laugh through her nose. Not loud, not dramatic. Just enough to let me know she enjoyed the sentence. My father continued, "You have spent years making this family look bad. You are going to get on that bus. You are going to stop poisoning my house. And if anyone calls asking questions, I will tell them the truth." I whispered. "What truth?" His face hardened. "That you are unstable? That you lie? That we tried everything? That you refused help?" I looked past him at the station windows. There was a security guard inside, standing near a vending machine, with a paper cup in her hand. A woman at the ticket counter was wiping down the desk. A young couple sat on a bench with backpacks between their feet. Everyone was close enough to see us. No one was close enough to understand. That is one of the cruelest things about being abandoned in public. People assume if something terrible is happening, someone else must already know what to do. Marissa pushed the trash bag toward me with the toe of her boot. "Do not make a scene, Claire," she said. "For once in your life, leave with some dignity." I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab my father by the sleeve and remind him I was his daughter. I wanted to ask if he remembered promising my mother before she died that he would always take care of me. But I could not make my mouth move. I was too busy realizing Marissa had not won an argument that night. She had won a war I did not even know I was in. My father stepped back and opened the driver's door. I said, "Please do not leave me here." He looked at me one last time. There was no anger on his face anymore. Only relief. That hurt more. He was not losing control. He was getting rid of a problem. Marissa got into the passenger seat. Through the window, I saw her fix her lipstick in the mirror. Then my father started the car. The red taillights pulled away from the curb. I waited for him to stop. I waited for the brake lights. I waited for guilt. But the car turned at the end of the lot. and disappeared behind a row of idling buses. That was the moment I understood something no child should ever have to understand. Some parents do not leave because they are confused. Some parents leave because they have already explained to themselves why you deserve it. For a few seconds, I stood there without moving. The trash bag leaned against my leg. The ticket was damp in my palm. My phone buzzed once, then went black. Dead battery. Even my phone gave up before I did. Then the station door opened. The security guard I had seen inside walked out slowly, both hands visible, like she was approaching a frightened animal. Her name tag said Ruth Alvarez. She looked at the trash bag, then at the ticket, then down the road where my father's car had vanished. And she did not ask me what I had done wrong. She asked, "Are you safe?" That question broke something open in me. I started shaking so hard, the ticket slipped out of my hand. Ruth picked it up, but she did not hand it back. "How old are you?" she asked. I tried to say 15, but my voice would not come out right. She put her jacket around my shoulders, not touching me, just placing it there carefully. Like she understood kindness could scare a person too, if it came too fast. "I'm going to bring you inside," she said. "We are going to charge your phone. Then we are going to call someone whose job is to protect kids. You do not have to get on that bus." I panicked. My dad said they will say I ran. Ruth's face changed. Not shocked. Sharper. She looked toward the parking lot one more time. Then said, "Then we are going to write down exactly what happened, before anybody gets a chance to rewrite it." I did not understand how important that sentence was. Not yet. I did not know Ruth would write down the time, the ticket number, the partial license plate, and the words she had heard. I did not know the ticket had been purchased with my father's debit card. Less than an hour before he left me there. I did not know a record could become a kind of witness. I only knew one adult had finally looked at me like I was a child in danger. Not a problem to be solved. 10 years later, I walked into a community hall wearing a navy dress, black heels, and a calm face I had practiced in the mirror for 20 minutes. My father stood on a small stage under a banner that read, "Protecting children, strengthening families, honoring community leaders." Marissa sat in the front row, smiling like the first lady of a town that had never asked too many questions. On the screen behind them was a slideshow of family photos. My father holding my little half-brother, Marissa handing out backpacks, the two of them at charity dinners. And then came the photo. The one I had been waiting for, a family picnic from years ago. At first glance, it looked like a normal happy family photo. But I knew what was missing. Me. I had been standing on the far left in the original. 15 years old. Awkward. Quiet. Wearing a blue hoodie with the sleeves pulled over my hands. In the version on the screen, the photo had been cropped just past my shoulder, clean enough that no one would know I had ever been there. The woman at the podium introduced my father as a man who understood troubled youth, because his own family had survived the heartbreak of a daughter who ran from help. People nodded. My father lowered his eyes in the exact way he did when he wanted people to mistake performance for pain. Then he stepped up to the microphone. He said, "Sometimes loving a child means accepting that you cannot save them from themselves." The room went quiet. I felt the old Claire inside me. The girl outside the bus station. The girl holding a dead phone. The girl who believed, for one terrible night, that maybe she really was as difficult as they said. But I was not 15 anymore. In my lap was a folder. Inside it was the original photograph, the bus ticket, the incident report, the child welfare intake note, a voicemail my father forgot he had left, and a signed statement from Ruth Alvarez. My father had spent 10 years telling people I vanished because I was broken. That night, I walked into the room with proof that I had been removed. Before Marissa, my father was not warm. Exactly. But he was mine. He packed my lunches too neatly, checked the locks 3 times before bed, and believed tears were something you handled in private. After my mother died, I told myself that was grief. My mother's name was Elise. She had the kind of laugh people remembered after meeting her once. When she got sick, the house changed slowly. Then all at once, pill bottles on the kitchen counter, quiet phone calls in the hallway, neighbors bringing casseroles we never finished. I was 8 when she died. At the funeral, my father held my hand so tightly my fingers hurt. Everyone told him he was strong. Everyone told me I was brave. I did not feel brave. I felt like someone had taken the roof off my life and expected me to keep sleeping through the rain. For a while, it was just the two of us. Then, when I was 11, I met Marissa. She worked in event planning for a local nonprofit, which meant she knew how to make anything look beautiful from the outside. That was her gift. Table, rooms, people, stories. She could arrange them all until no one noticed what had been pushed out of frame. At first, she was gentle with me. Almost too gentle. She brought me cupcakes from a bakery downtown and said she hoped we could be friends. She complimented my hair. She told my father, right in front of me, that she admired how much he had sacrificed as a single dad. I wanted to like her, because liking her seemed to make my father breathe easier. That is the part people do not understand about children in new families. We are not always trying to ruin anything. Sometimes we are trying so hard to be easy to love that we disappear before anyone even asks us to. Marissa moved in 6 months later. They married the following spring. By then, the house already felt less like mine. She changed the curtains, the rug, the dishes my mother had picked out. Then she moved the photo of my mother from the living room shelf to the upstairs hallway. When I asked why, she smiled and said, "Sweetheart, no one is erasing her, but your father deserves to move forward." Move forward. That became the phrase for everything. My mother's Christmas ornaments stayed in a box. My mother's recipe cards went into storage. Aunt Lillian, my mother's sister, called too often and stirred up grief. So my father stopped answering. And me? I became the thing no one said out loud. The living reminder that my father had once belonged to another life. Marissa never attacked me directly in the beginning. She was smarter than that. She sighed when I entered a room. She paused before answering my questions, just long enough to make me feel like I had interrupted something important. If I stayed in my room, she told people I was isolating. If I sat downstairs, she told my father I was watching her. If I was quiet, I was cold. If I spoke, I had tone. I learned that in Marissa's house, there was no neutral way for me to exist. Whenever I tried to tell my father something felt wrong, he would rub the bridge of his nose and say, "Claire, she is trying." That was always the answer. Marissa was trying. Marissa was adjusting. Marissa was doing her best. No one ever asked what I was doing. The first time I saw myself removed from a picture, I was 12. We had gone to a church picnic at a park by the water. Someone took a photo of us near a folding table, covered with lemonade pitchers and paper plates. My father stood in the middle. Marissa on one side, me on the other. I remember that photo because Marissa had gripped my shoulder too hard just before the flash and whispered, "Smile like you mean it." A week later, the church posted the photo online. Except I was not in it. The picture had been cropped just past my shoulder. My father and Marissa looked like a young, hopeful couple beginning a beautiful life. No dead wife. No grieving daughter. No complication. I showed my father. He glanced at the image and said, "It is probably just the format." Marissa came in behind him and said, "Oh, Claire, do not be sensitive. They crop things automatically." But I saw the corner of her mouth move. Just a little. Only the kind meant for me. After that, it happened more often. Family Christmas card with just the three of them. Church directory photo scheduled on a weekend. I was supposedly at a friend's house, even though I was upstairs with the flu. A framed picture in my father's office from a charity breakfast, where I had been sitting beside him. Cropped, so only his suit sleeve remained where my arm had been. Every time I said something, Marissa made it sound like I was begging for attention. "She is struggling with change," she told my father. "She sees rejection everywhere. She needs therapy." Daniel. Not more reassurance. My father began repeating her language. Struggling. Reactive. Difficult. Unstable. Those words are dangerous when adults attach them to a child. They become labels other people read before they read you. When my half-brother Owen was born, the erasing became easier. Everyone wanted photos of the baby. Everyone told my father he had been blessed with a second chance. A second chance at fatherhood. I used to wonder what that made me. The first attempt? The mistake before the real family? I loved Owen. He was a baby. He did not ask to be used as proof that the rest of us were replaceable. But after he was born, my room became storage. Then nursery overflow. Then guest space. My books were boxed without asking. My mother's quilt disappeared because Marissa said it smelled old. One afternoon, I came home from school and found half my closet packed into black garbage bags. Marissa was sitting on the floor with labels and a marker. She looked up and said, "Do not look so dramatic. We are just organizing." I asked why my clothes were in trash bags. She said, "Because boxes are for things worth keeping neatly." I told my father when he got home. Marissa cried. That was all it took. She said she had opened her home, her marriage, her heart. And I punished her for not being my mother. My father looked at me like I had slapped her. Then he said, "You are making this family impossible." That sentence became the shape of my teenage years. Not "this is hard." Not "we need help." Not "I'm sorry you are hurting." You are making this family impossible. By the time I was 14, Daniel and Marissa Bennett had become known in our community. The couple who volunteered at school drives. The couple who hosted clean, bright fundraisers. The couple who spoke openly about family resilience. Marissa loved that phrase. Family resilience. She used it in captions under photos where I was absent. She used it when people asked how hard it was blending a family after loss. She would lower her voice and say, "It has not always been easy. But love means structure." People admired that. They liked the idea of a woman brave enough to raise another woman's child. They liked the idea of a father strong enough to guide a troubled daughter. I became part of their story, without being allowed to speak in it. If I missed an event because Marissa had not told me, people heard I refused to go. If I cried, people heard I was emotionally manipulative. If I got angry, people heard I was unsafe around the baby. That was the one that scared me most. Unsafe. One day, after Owen fell while learning to walk, Marissa said, "Were you watching him?" I had not even been in the room. It did not matter. My father picked Owen up and looked at me. Like suspicion was easier than asking questions. That was when I understood how far Marissa was willing to go. She did not just want me gone from photos. She wanted me gone from trust. The final month before the bus station, everything tightened. My father had been nominated for a local family service committee through a nonprofit Marissa worked with. It was not a huge position. But to him, it mattered. It came with public recognition, networking, a seat at tables he had always wanted to enter. My father needed updated family photos for the committee profile. That was the first time Marissa said it directly. Maybe Claire should sit this one out. We were in the kitchen. I was doing homework at the table. My father was reviewing paperwork. Marissa was scrolling through a photographer's website. She said it like she was discussing weather. I just think the focus should be on stability, she said. The committee is about family wellness. We do not need to invite questions, I said. Questions about what? She turned toward me slowly. About why you always look miserable, I said. Maybe because you keep cutting me out of everything. My father slammed his pen down. Enough. But I was tired. I stood up and said, No. You let her do this. You let her tell everyone I am the problem. Because it is easier than admitting she does not want me here. Marissa went still. Then she said softly, Daniel. She cannot keep making accusations like this. Not with Owen in the house. There it was. The baby shield. The sentence that turned every argument into a threat. My father told me to go to my room. I said. It was my room before she packed it into trash bags. His face changed. Cold, he said. You want to talk about trash bags? Marissa looked down at her hands. She did not look surprised. She looked ready. That night, no one yelled for a while. That made it worse. My father told me to pack what I needed. Marissa stood in my doorway with a stack of black trash bags. The same kind she had used for my closet. I refused at first. Then my father came in, took my backpack off the chair, dumped my school books onto the floor, and said, If you do not pack, I will pack for you. So I packed jeans, a sweatshirt, socks, a few shirts, my mother's small silver necklace, hidden inside a rolled pair of pajamas. I tried to take the framed photo of her from my drawer, but Marissa stopped me. That belongs in the house? She said. I looked at my father. He looked away. Around 10:30, he told me to get in the car. I thought maybe he was taking me to Aunt Lillian, even though he had not spoken to her in years. Some desperate part of me believed there had to be an adult at the other end of this. Some plan that was cruel, but still human. Marissa came too. No one explained where we were going. Owen was asleep at home with a neighbor. The roads were wet. Streetlights slid across the windows. My trash bag sat in the trunk. I texted my father from the back seat because I was too scared to speak. Where are we going? He read it at a red light. He did not answer. 20 minutes later, another text bubble appeared. Unknown number. But I knew it was Marissa because the message sounded like her. Do not make this worse for yourself. I looked up and saw her watching me in the mirror. That was when I knew this was not just my father losing control. This was coordinated. When we pulled into the bus station lot, I saw the Greyhound sign glowing blue against the dark. My stomach dropped. My father parked near the curb. Marissa checked the time. He got out, opened the trunk, and pulled out the trash bag. Then he handed me the ticket. It had already been bought, already printed, already decided. My father did not abandon me because of one fight. He did not snap. By the time he parked outside that bus station, he was not deciding whether to abandon me. He was only deciding how clean he could make it look. The first thing Ruth did was not call me brave. I am grateful for that. Adults love calling children brave when they do not want to say abandoned, betrayed, or failed. Ruth did not ask me to be inspiring. She led me through the sliding doors of the bus station and into a small office behind the ticket counter. That smelled like burnt coffee and printer paper. She pointed to a chair and said, "Sit down." Claire? I had not told her my name. For one terrifying second, I thought my father had already called ahead. Then Ruth held up the ticket. "Your name is on this, right?" The ticket. My father had bought it in my name. That detail would matter later. At the time, it only made me feel more trapped. Like even the paper in my hand agreed I was supposed to leave. Ruth plugged my phone into a charger. Then she opened a blank report form on her computer. "What time did they leave you?" I looked at the clock. "Enaist 7:47 ph.e.m." I said, "A few minutes ago." She typed, "Not fast. Not slow. Steady." "What kind of car?" I told her. "What color?" "Black." "License plate?" I did not know the whole thing, but I knew the first 3 letters. She wrote those down too. "What did your father say?" My throat closed. Ruth waited. She did not fill the silence with comfort. That helped. "Finally," I said. "He said if I told anyone they abandoned me, he would make sure people believed I ran." Ruth stopped typing. Just for a second. Then she entered the sentence exactly. Not softened. Not summarized. Not turned into something polite. She wrote it the way I said it. A few minutes later, a Tacoma police officer came in. Then a woman from Child Protective Services. They asked questions. A lot of questions. Was I using drugs? Had I threatened anyone in the home? Had I run away before? Was there a fight? Did I have somewhere safe to go? Every question made me feel smaller. I know now they had to ask. At 15, it felt like being put on trial for being left behind. Then they called my father. My father answered on the 4th ring. Sounding tired. Not panicked. Not ashamed. Tired. Like this was an inconvenience. The officer said they had located his minor daughter at the bus station. There was a pause. Then my father sighed. "I was afraid this might happen." Those 6 words shifted the room. Not because they were true, because they sounded prepared. He said I had been escalating for months. He said I had become hostile toward Marissa. He said I resented my baby brother. He said I had threatened to leave many times. He said he and Marissa had agreed to let me cool off and visit family in Oregon. But I must have decided to create a scene. The officer asked why I had a one-way ticket. My father said, "She insisted on it." The officer asked why I had my clothes in a trash bag. My father said, "She packed that way." The officer asked why he had left before confirming I boarded safely. My father went quiet. Then Marissa's voice came through in the background. She was screaming at us. We were afraid of making things worse. I had not screamed. Not once. I had barely spoken. But that did not matter. Their voices sounded adult. Controlled. Concerned. Mine sounded like crying. That is a terrible disadvantage. When you are a child telling the truth against grown people who have rehearsed a lie. My father had given them a version they could understand. Troubled teenager. Exhausted parents. Family conflict. A misunderstanding at a bus station. It was clean. Too clean. When the call ended, Ruth stepped forward. "I need to add something," she said. The officer turned. Ruth pointed at the security monitor. "The camera over Bay 2 caught the curb. I cannot release footage without management. But the system should have the last 30 days. I also heard part of what the father said before they drove off." The officer asked what she heard. Ruth looked at her report. Then she read it exactly. "Tell anyone we abandoned you." And I will make sure they believe you ran. No one spoke for a moment. That was the first time I saw a lie lose a little bit of oxygen. Not not yet. But weaken. I did not go to Portland that night. I did not go home either. They drove me to an emergency youth placement just after 2 in the morning. A staff member labeled my trash bag with masking tape. Claire Bennett. Intake. I stared at that label for a long time. It was the first place my name appeared after the abandonment. Not on a bedroom door. Not under a family photo. On a trash bag in a county office. By morning, my father had sent 3 emails to the caseworker. Not to me. To the caseworker. They were long, organized, full of phrases like emotional volatility, concerning behavior, and family safety. He attached a list of incidents. Me slamming a door. Me refusing dinner. Me crying after Marissa packed my closet. Me raising my voice in the kitchen. Every moment I had reacted to being erased had been saved and renamed as proof that I was unstable. That was when I understood the second half of what he had done. Leaving me at the bus station was not the whole plan. It was just the part that moved my body out of the house. The emails were the part meant to remove my credibility. For 3 days, I lived inside questions. Could I return home? Would my father be charged? Could someone contact my mother's family? Did I have relatives who could take me? I gave them Aunt Lillian's name. My mother's older sister. The one my father said made grief worse. The one he had stopped answering years earlier. The caseworker found her. Aunt Lillian arrived on the 3rd day. She came in wearing a brown cardigan, rain boots, and the expression of someone trying very hard not to fall apart in front of a child. The moment she saw me, she put one hand over her mouth. Not because I looked dramatic. Because I looked like a niece she had not been allowed to know. I expected a speech. Adults liked speeches. Aunt Lillian did not give one. She sat beside me on a vinyl couch and said, "I'm sorry I was not there sooner." That was all. That was enough. The caseworker explained the temporary kinship placement. My father had not agreed to take me back without conditions. Those conditions included therapy, a written apology to Marissa, no unsupervised time with Owen, and a behavioral contract acknowledging my pattern of dishonesty. Aunt Lillian read the list once. Then she folded it and placed it on the table. "She is not signing a confession to earn a bed," she said. I think that was the first time I breathed all the way in. Aunt Lillian gave me the guest room. Not a mattress in storage. Not a couch. A room. There was a quilt on the bed, a lamp on the nightstand, and an empty dresser. Empty. That detail made me cry after she closed the door. There was space waiting for my things. Mine. Aunt Lillian loved practically. She helped me transfer schools. She got copies of everything: birth certificate, social security card, medical records, school transcripts, Ruth's incident report, the child welfare intake summary. She bought a thick blue folder and wrote my name on a label. Then she put it on the kitchen table and said, "This is yours?" I opened it and saw my life organized in clear plastic sleeves. It should have felt clinical. Instead, it felt like armor. Aunt Lillian worked part-time in the county records office. That meant she believed in dates, stamps, signatures, copies, receipts. She believed memories mattered. But records protected memories when other people had reasons to challenge them. At first, I hated that folder. I hated that my life had become something that needed evidence. Other girls my age had scrapbooks. I had intake reports. But slowly, I understood. A record was not a lack of trust. It was a place for truth to survive. Until someone was ready to face it. Years passed. Community college, paralegal studies, nonprofit administration, child welfare policy. I worked in a records office, then at a family advocacy nonprofit, then as a documentation coordinator for teenagers leaving unsafe homes. My job did not sound glamorous. I built files. I verified dates. I helped clients request police reports, school records, medical forms, court documents, and identification cards. I taught kids how to write down what happened, without apologizing for taking up space. I became very good at spotting the difference between confusion and manipulation. Confusion leaves gaps. Manipulation leaves a pattern. And my father had left a pattern. For years. I did not contact him. But he spoke about me. Relatives sent messages in careful language. Your dad says he hopes you are getting help. Your dad says he and Marissa still pray for you. Your dad says he has forgiven everything. Forgiven. That word made me laugh the first time I read it. Then it made me shake. Then it made me tired. He had turned himself into the injured party. The father who tried. The father who loved a troubled daughter enough to let her go. The father who deserved sympathy because I had survived without him. When I was 25. Our nonprofit prepared for a regional child advocacy gala. I handled documentation for sponsorship packets and speaker bios. It was ordinary work, until I opened a file named Bennett. Daniel. Board nomination. PDF. For a moment, I thought it had to be someone else. Then I saw the headshot. My father. Olda. Gray at the temples. Same careful smile. Same eyes that knew how to look sad without surrendering control. The nomination described him as a dedicated community leader. Husband. And father. Then came the paragraph that made the room tilt. Daniel and his wife. Marissa. I know firsthand the heartbreak of loving a child through crisis. After their eldest daughter ran from home as a teenager, the Bennetts dedicated themselves to helping other families recognize warning signs and practice loving structure. I read it once. Then again. Then a third time. Slower. Their eldest daughter ran from home. Naught was left. Naught was removed. Naught was abandoned with a bus ticket and a trash bag. Ran. And there it was. The final version of the lie. Polished. Fundable. Inspirational. My father had not just erased me from the family. He had turned the empty space into a credential. Then I opened the slideshow. There were photos of my father and Marissa at events. Photos of Owen. Now nearly grown. Smiling beside them. Photos of donation drives and community panels. And then I saw the picnic photo. The cropped one. The same one from when I was 12. After all those years. They were still using a picture with me cut out of it. Only now. They were using it to convince an organization that they understood what children needed. I closed the file. Then I opened the blue folder I still kept in the bottom drawer of my desk. Inside were the things my father assumed time had swallowed. The bus ticket. Ruth's report. The intake summary. The first relative message that called me a runaway. The card Ruth gave me at graduation. The voicemail transcript Aunt Lillian had insisted we make, after my father left a message warning me not to spread a version of events that could damage this family. For 10 years, I had thought of that folder as protection, something that proved I was not crazy. But looking at my father's nomination file, I understood it differently. It was not just protection. It was a door. And for the first time, I had to decide whether to open it. That night, I called Aunt Lillian. I told her about the nomination, the gala, the paragraph, the photo. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "What do you want to happen?" I expected myself to say I wanted him ruined. I wanted him humiliated. I wanted every person who had ever believed him to feel stupid. Those things were in me. But underneath them was something older and steadier. I want him to stop using me, I said. Aunt Lillian exhaled. Then we do this clean. We. That word held me together. The next morning, I requested the archived station report. I contacted Ruth. I found the photographer from the church picnic. I began building a timeline. Date. Event. Claim. Evidence. Contradiction. Not because I wanted to make my pain look professional. Because my father had always counted on my pain sounding too messy to believe. This time, I would not give him that advantage. My father had built a reputation on the story of the daughter who ran. The problem was, I still had the record showing who bought the ticket. I did not expose my father that day. That would have been too easy. And too dangerous. Not dangerous for him. Dangerous for me. Because there is a version of revenge that feels powerful for 5 minutes. And then leaves you standing in the wreckage. Looking too much like the people who hurt you. I knew what people expected from someone with my story. They expected rage. A public post. A shaking video. And I wanted to do that. For about 10 minutes. I wanted it so badly I could feel it in my teeth. But then I thought about what I did for a living. I thought about the teenagers I had sat beside in court hallways and school offices. I thought about all the times I had told them, do not give people a reason to dismiss the truth. Because they do not like your delivery. So, I opened a blank document. And I started where I always started. With the timeline. Not feelings first. Facts first. That sounds cold. It was not. It was the only way I knew to keep my hands steady. June 14th. 2013. Church picnic photo taken at Chambers Creek Park. Claire Bennett present in original image. June 21st. 2013. Cropped version, posted by Marissa Bennett. Excluding Claire Bennett. November 3rd. 2016. One-way bus ticket purchased by Daniel Bennett. Tacoma to Portland. 10:18 p.m. November 3rd. 2016. Claire Bennett left at Tacoma Greyhound curb. Approximately 11:43 p.m. November 3rd. 2016. Station security report filed by Ruth Alvarez. November 4th. 2016. Child welfare intake opened. January 7th. 2017. Voicemail from Daniel Bennett warning Claire not to damage the family. With a version of events. I kept going until the story stopped shaking and started standing. Then I called Ruth. I told her about the nomination. The gala. The cropped photograph. The way my father had turned the night at the bus station into a public lesson about troubled youth. Ruth did not interrupt. When I finished, she said, "Do you need me to remember? Or do you need me to prove?" My throat tightened. Both. Ruth was retired by then. She could not hand me private footage from a company server. But she could sign a statement about what she saw, what she heard, what she filed, and where that report should exist. More importantly, she could identify the report number. People underestimate numbers. But when someone powerful has spent years calling you unstable, the most beautiful sentence in the English language can be a reference number. The report came back 5 days later. Redacted in places. Stale looking. Boring. Perfect. There it was. My name. The date. The location. Minor female left at station by parent. One-way ticket purchased by father. Subject reported threat regarding being labeled as runaway. Security staff observed minor alone at curb after parent vehicle departed. I read that sentence again and again. It was not poetic. It did not hold me. It did not apologize. But it did something no one in my father's house had done. It admitted what happened. Next came the ticket record. Passenger. Claire Bennett. Route? Tacoma to Portland. Purchased. 10:18 p.m. Cardholder. Daniel Bennett. The voicemail was already saved. My father's voice on the recording was calm, almost gentle. Claire. This is your father. I understand you are upset. But you need to be very careful about the version of events you share with people. Marissa and I have done our best with a difficult situation. And I will not allow you to damage this family with accusations you know are not fair. There was no direct confession. People like my father rarely gave you that. But paired with the ticket, the report, and Ruth's statement, it showed motive. Control the story. Protect the image. Make the child sound dangerous before anyone asks why she disappeared. The photograph was the final piece. I found the original photographer through an old church newsletter. His name was Peter Walsh. I sent him the cropped photo and asked if he still had archives from the church picnic. A week passed. Then he replied, I think I found the original. You are in this one. Do you want me to send it? I stared at that sentence for a long time. You are in this one. It should not have hurt. It did. Because for 10 years, that was all I had wanted someone to say. When the file opened, there I was. At the edge. Yes. Sleeves pulled over my hands. Looking like I wanted to disappear before anyone helped me do it. But present. Real. Uncropped. Marissa's hand was on Owen's stroller. My father was smiling. And I was standing right beside him. Not imagined. Not invented. There. I printed the photo large enough that no one could pretend not to see the difference. Then I printed the cropped version beside it. Original. Edited. Daughter present. Daughter removed. If my father's story was a wall, that photo was the first crack wide enough for light. I sent the file to the review committee 3 days before the gala. Not to blow up the room. To give them a chance to ask questions before placing my father on a stage. They acknowledged receipt. They said they would review. Then, 24 hours before the event, the public program was updated. Daniel Bennett was still listed as the honoree. That was when I knew they either had not read it, or they had decided my father's reputation was easier to honor than my evidence was to confront. So I went. Aunt Lillian came with me. Ruth came too. Wearing a dark blazer and walking with a cane. Inside, the hall was bright and warm. A slideshow played on a screen behind the stage. Children smiling. Volunteers handing out backpacks. Families hugging in staged photographs. And then, again, my father. Daniel Bennett. Community leader. Family advocate. Man of resilience. I saw him before he saw me. He was near the front. Shaking hands. Older now. More polished. Gray at the temples. But still arranged. That was the word that came to me. Arranged. Like Marissa had spent years fixing his edges, until he looked like the kind of man people trusted before he spoke. Marissa stood beside him in a navy dress. One hand lightly on his arm. Owen was there too. 19 now. Tall. Quiet. Looking uncomfortable in a suit. I had not seen him since he was 5. My father saw Aunt Lillian first. His smile faltered. Then he saw Ruth. His face changed just enough for me to know he remembered the station. Then he saw me. For a moment, I watched him calculate. Shock. Fear. Recovery. Warmth. He walked toward me with his arms opening. Claire. My name in his mouth sounded like a borrowed thing. I stepped back before he could touch me. His arms lowered smoothly, like he had meant to make a welcoming gesture to the room. Not to me. Marissa came up behind him. Oh my goodness, she said. Look at you. She said it like I was a niece who had been studying abroad, not a child she had helped remove from her home. Marissa, I said. Nothing more? Her eyes moved to the folder in my hand. You came to support your father? I looked at the stage. No, I said. I came to correct the record. The program began. A pastor opened with a prayer. A board chair gave remarks about community trust. A local council member spoke about the need for strong families. Then the board chair introduced my father. He praised Daniel and Marissa for helping families navigate crisis with grace. He mentioned their heartbreak, their perseverance, their troubled daughter. He did not say my name. That was almost funny. I was central enough to make my father admirable, but not real enough to name. My father walked to the podium. Applause filled the room. Then he began. Many of you know our family has not had an easy road. Marissa lowered her eyes. Perfect timing. We loved a child who fought every structure we tried to give her. We learned that sometimes love looks like boundaries. Sometimes, love means letting someone face the consequences of their choices. My hand closed around the folder. Aunt Lillian touched my wrist under the table. Not to stop me, to remind me I was not alone. My father continued. If our story helps one family recognize warning signs before it is too late, then perhaps. I stood up. The chair legs scraped softly against the floor. Not loud, but loud enough. My father stopped. Every face turned. I could feel the room deciding what I was before I spoke. Disruption. Daughter. Problem. Proof. The board chair leaned toward the microphone. Ma'am, we will have a comment period after. My name is Claire Bennett, I said. That name moved through the room faster than sound should. People looked at each other. Marissa's mouth tightened. My father gave me a sad, careful smile. Claire, he said gently. This may not be the right place. I nodded. You are right. This should have been handled 10 years ago at a bus station. The air shifted. My father looked down. Then back up. I understand you remember that period differently. There it was. The first tool. Memory. Make it about memory. And you make truth look foggy. I opened the folder. I am not asking anyone to believe my memory. Then I held up the incident report. I am asking you to read the record. No one moved. So I kept going. This is a station security report from November 3rd, 2016. It documents a 15-year-old minor left at the Tacoma Greyhound station by her parent. That minor was me. My father stepped away from the microphone. Claire. Please? I looked at him. Please what? Not make a scene? Not embarrass the family? Not damage your reputation with a version of events? His face drained slightly at the phrase. I saw it. So did Ruth? Marisa stood. This is exactly what we have dealt with for years, she said, voice trembling at just the right volume. Claire has always struggled with emotional regulation. We love her. But this kind of public attack is not healthy. Ruth stood slowly, one hand on her cane. I was on duty that night, she said. I saw Claire outside with a trash bag and a one-way ticket. I heard part of what her father said before leaving. I filed the report. She was a minor. She was alone. She was scared. She did not look like a child running toward freedom. She looked like a child who had just been left. Marissa whispered. That is not fair. Ruth turned her head. Ma'am. You were there. 2 words. The room went still. My father gripped the sides of the podium. This is a complicated family matter, he said. No. I said. You made it public when you used it in your nomination. Then I pulled out the bus ticket record. This ticket was purchased by Daniel Bennett at 10:18 p.m. That night. Not by me. Not at my request. By him. Then the voicemail transcript. This is a transcript of a voicemail my father left 2 months later, warning me not to damage the family with my version of events. Then the 2 photos. Original. Cropped. Me standing beside my father. Me removed. This photo was submitted in Daniel Bennett's nomination packet as part of his family story. The version they gave you was edited. I am the part they cut out. No one applauded. No one gasped. Real truth does not always create movie noise. Sometimes it creates silence so heavy people are afraid to breathe through it. My father tried one more time. Claire has carried a lot of pain, he said, and I am sorry for that. But she was not an easy child. I almost smiled. Because after all the records, all the witnesses, all the proof, that was still the best he had. I was not easy. As if children have to be easy to deserve not being abandoned. I looked at him. I was 15. My mother was dead. My room was being packed away. My stepmother was telling people I was unstable. And you chose to believe the story that made your life easier. His jaw tightened. You do not know what we went through. No? I said, I know exactly what you went through. You went through the inconvenience of being seen clearly. That landed. Not loud. Deep. Owen stood from the front row. For one awful second, I thought he was going to defend them. Instead, he looked at the photos. Then at me. He said, I remember that hoodie. Marissa turned toward him. Owen. Sit down. He did not. I remember she was in that picture, he said. I was little. But I remember. The board chair called for a pause in the program. People began whispering. My father stepped away from the podium, looking smaller without the microphone. Marissa came toward me. Hands raised. Claire. Sweetheart. We made mistakes. Mistakes. A wrong turn is a mistake. Burning dinner is a mistake. Leaving a 15-year-old at a bus station with a ticket she did not buy is a decision. Cropping her out of a photograph is a decision. Calling her unstable before she can speak is a decision. Using her disappearance to get applause is a decision. I only said, do not call me sweetheart. The board chair returned to the microphone. This organization takes these concerns seriously. We will be postponing tonight's award pending review. Postponing. Not canceling. Not condemning. But it was enough. Enough to take him off the stage. Enough to stop the applause. Enough to make the lie publicly unstable. As people rose from their seats, Ruth touched my shoulder. This time, I did not flinch. Aunt Lillian stood on my other side. For the first time in 10 years, I was in a room with my father, and I was not alone. My father stepped down from the stage and came close enough that only I could hear him. You have no idea what you just did. I looked at him. Yes. I said. I do. His voice dropped. You destroyed this family. That was when I finally understood the core of him. He truly believed the family was the picture, not the people inside it. If the picture looked good, the family was good, even if the only reason the picture looked good was because he had cut me out. I picked up the original photograph from the table and held it between us. No. I said. I brought the original back. For 1 second, something moved across his face. Not guilt. Recognition. Maybe. Then it was gone. He walked away. Marissa followed him. Owen did not. He stood in the aisle, staring at me like someone trying to match a childhood feeling to an adult truth. I did not know, he said. I know. I said. He wiped his eyes fast. I am sorry. I wanted to tell him it was not his fault. I did. Actually, but I also knew those words can become a burden when they are given too quickly. So I said, "You were a kid?" When we stepped outside, the air was cold. Not bus station cold. Just October cold. Clean. Temporary. Ruth leaned against her cane and said, "You did good?" I looked at her. "Did he?" She nodded toward the building. "You did not ask them to feel sorry for you. You made them look." That sentence stayed with me. Because that was what I had wanted. Not pity. Not applause. Not revenge. I wanted the room to look. To see the girl at the edge of the photo. To see the ticket. To see the report. To see the difference between a child who ran and a child who was removed. For the first time in 10 years. My father was not standing in front of people as the man who survived a broken daughter. He was standing there as the man who had broken one. By Monday morning, my father's name had been removed from the nonprofit's website. Not dramatically. No public apology. No bold statement. Just gone. The gala photos were still posted. But the caption under the awards section had been changed to something vague about ongoing review. That was how institutions protected themselves. Soft words. Neutral language. Careful distance. But people noticed. They always notice the absence after they have been trained to admire the presence. By the end of the week, people in our town were using phrases like concerns raised, family history, and conflicting accounts. Conflicting accounts. That phrase bothered me more than I expected. Because there were not two equal accounts. There was a man with a microphone and a daughter with a file. There was a cropped photo and an original. There was a story about a runaway founded, and a ticket purchased by the father who claimed she ran. The first consequence was the board position. My father withdrew his nomination for personal reasons. The second consequence was Marissa. Her name quietly disappeared from 2 volunteer committee lists. She did not post about it. For once, Marissa had no caption. Owen messaged me 3 days after the gala. "Can we talk sometime?" Not about them. About what I remember. I think there are things I did not understand. I read it while sitting at my desk, surrounded by files for other people's emergencies. For a minute. I was 15 again, watching a little boy toddle across the living room, wondering if he would grow up hearing I had left because I did not love him. I did not answer right away. Aunt Lillian once told me boundaries are not punishments. They are doors with locks you control. So I waited until I could answer, without bleeding into the message. Then I wrote, "We can talk. Slowly. I am not ready to carry everything for you. But I am willing to tell you what I can." He replied, "That is fair." Fair. A small word. A word that had not existed much in the Bennett house. My father waited 4 days before contacting me. The email subject line was, "Please read this as my daughter." I almost deleted it. Instead, I opened it because some old part of me still wanted to know what his version of sorry looked like. It was long. Of course, he wrote that the gala had been painful for everyone. He wrote that he wished I had come to him privately. He wrote that he had made mistakes during a difficult season. He wrote that public humiliation would not heal me. Then he wrote the sentence I knew was coming. "You are destroying the family you claim was taken from you." There it was. He was still asking me to protect the image. Still treating the truth as violence. Because it had finally touched him. The review meeting happened the following Thursday. I brought Aunt Lillian. Ruth joined by video. 3 board members sat across from me, along with a lawyer who spoke in the slow, careful tone of someone paid to prevent sentences from becoming admissions. They asked me to walk through the timeline. So I did. I kept my voice steady. I said my name. My age then. The date. The location. The ticket. The report. The voicemail. The photo. I did not make them feel what happened. Before I made them understand what happened. Pain can open a door, but evidence keeps it from closing. When I finished, the oldest board member, a woman named Denise, removed her glasses and rubbed her eyes. She said, "I owe you an apology." The lawyer shifted in his chair. Denise ignored him. "We should have reviewed the file before the event." "We did not. That failure belongs to us." It was not enough. But it was something. Then she said, "We will be ending our relationship with Daniel Bennett and removing any training content based on his family story." His family story. That phrase did not hurt the way it used to. Maybe because the story was not only his anymore. Maybe because it never had been. After the meeting, my father was waiting in the parking lot. I should have known. He was leaning against his car, arms crossed, wearing the same navy coat he used to wear to church when I was a teenager. For a second, time folded. I saw him outside the bus station, outside the house, at the podium, always near an exit, always ready to decide who belonged inside. Ruth was still on my phone screen. "Do you want me to stay on?" Ruth asked. "Yes," I said. My father saw the phone and gave a bitter smile. "Still need witnesses?" I looked at him. "Yes." That answer landed harder than an insult. He pushed off the car and walked toward us. "I wanted to talk to you privately. You lost the right to private truth when you made the lie public." His jaw tightened. He said, "You think you won?" "No." "Then what do you call this?" I glanced back at the building. The people inside finally reading what they should have read before. I said, "I call it correction." He laughed once. "You embarrassed me in front of my community. You abandoned me in front of strangers?" His face changed. The directness bothered him. Not because he had not heard the accusation before. Because there was no soft place to hide inside that sentence. He lowered his voice. "You were impossible back then." "I was hurting." "You were angry." "Yes." "You made life hell in that house?" I looked at him for a long moment. Finally, I said, "I was a child whose mother died, whose room was being packed away, whose stepmother told people she was unstable, and whose father decided the easiest solution was removal, if that was inconvenient for you." I believe that. For the first time. He had no immediate sentence ready. Then he said, "Do you understand what this is doing to us?" There it was. Us. The circle I had been pushed out of, but was still expected to protect. "Owen will barely look at me," he said. "People are asking questions. Marissa is falling apart. I may lose consulting work over this." I said nothing. He took a step closer. "Claire, I am asking you as your father." "Stop." "As your father?" Years earlier, I would have done anything to hear him claim that title without conditions. Now it sounded like a badge he pinned on only when he needed access. "You are asking me as the person who left," I said, "not as the person who came back." His eyes hardened. "You want an apology?" "Fine. I am sorry. Is that what you need?" Some apologies arrive so empty they echo. "No," I said, "that is not what I need." "Then what do you want?" For years, I thought the answer would be complicated. I wanted my childhood back. I wanted my mother. I wanted someone to walk into the bus station 10 minutes earlier and stop the car from leaving. I wanted revenge. I wanted peace. I wanted things that could not exist in the same room. But standing there in that parking lot, with Aunt Lillian beside me, and Ruth listening through the phone, the answer became simple. "I want you to stop using me." He blinked. What? Stop telling people I ran. Stop calling what you did discipline. Stop making my absence part of your redemption story. Stop asking me to carry the cost of your reputation. He looked away. For 1 second, I thought he might hear me. Then he said, "You are still so selfish." And there he was. Not the community leader. Not the wounded father. Just Daniel Bennett. Angry that the person he removed had grown a voice strong enough to reach the room, Aunt Lillian stepped forward. "Daniel," she said, "you are done." He pointed at me. "You will regret this." I shook my head. "No. I regret waiting so long to believe myself. That was the last thing I said to my father in that parking lot. Not forever. Maybe. Life is strange. But it was the last thing I said as the daughter begging him to understand. That daughter had been waiting at the curb for 10 years. And finally, she got up. I met Owen for coffee 2 months later. He brought a folder. Inside were photos he had found. Old pictures from drawers and cloud backups. In some, I was there. At birthday parties. On the porch. Holding him as a baby. Standing half outside the frame like I was already preparing to be cropped. He pushed one photo across the table. "You were the one who taught me how to tie my shoes," he said. I looked at the picture. I did not remember that day. He did. That hurt and healed at the same time. "I am sorry they made you disappear," he said. I believed him because he did not ask me to comfort him after he apologized. We did not become instantly close. This is not that kind of story. We met again. Then again. Slowly. Carefully. Sometimes we talked about our father. Sometimes we talked about nothing important. Coffee. Weather. Work. 3 months after the gala, our nonprofit director asked if I would consider designing a small documentation workshop for youth clients. A place where teenagers could learn how to keep personal records safe, how to scan documents, how to write timelines, how to request copies of reports, how to preserve screenshots, without turning their lives into evidence every second of the day. At first, I said I would think about it. Then I went home and opened the blue folder. The ticket, the report, the voicemail, the original photo, the cropped photo, all these things I had carried like proof I was not crazy. They had done their job. They had protected the truth until I was ready to speak it. But I did not want to spend the rest of my life living inside the folder. So I built the workshop. We called it the First Folder Project. We did not ask the kids to tell their whole stories. That was one of my rules. No one had to perform their pain to receive help. We gave them folders, scanners, secure storage instructions, phone numbers, simple templates, date, time, what happened, who was present, what was said, what proof exists, what help was requested. It sounds small if you have never needed it. It is not small. For a kid whose whole life has been edited by adults, the first accurate record can feel like a door unlocking. A 16-year-old girl came to the second workshop, wearing a red hoodie, 2 sizes too big. At the end, she held the folder against her chest and asked, "What if nobody believes me anyway?" There it was, the question underneath everything. Not just her question. Mine? Ruth's. Aunt Lillian's. Every child who had ever learned that adults with clean voices, we could make dirty things sound reasonable. I told her the truth. Some people may not believe you right away. Her face fell. I continued. But that does not mean the truth is gone. It means we protect it until it has somewhere safe to land. She looked down at the folder, then back at me. So this is where it lives? I smiled. Yes. I said, for now. Later that night, I took the original picnic photo out of the blue folder and put it in a frame. Not the cropped version. Not the one my father and Marissa had used to sell their story. The original. All of us visible. My father smiling. Marissa pretending. Owen in the stroller. Me at the edge. Sleeves pulled over my hands. For a long time, I hated that picture because I looked so small in it. Now I see something else. I see a girl who was there. A girl who had not yet learned how hard people would work to remove her. A girl who survived the crop. I placed the frame on my bookshelf. Because I was done letting the edited version be the only one that existed in the world. People ask if exposing my father healed me. The honest answer is no. Not by itself. Watching him lose that stage did not give me my childhood back. It did not erase the bus station. It did not turn Daniel Bennett into the father I needed. But it did end the lie. And sometimes ending the lie is the first room healing can enter. I know my father sent one more email 6 months later. It said, "I hope someday you understand we did what we thought was best." I did not answer. Because I did understand. That was the problem. They did what they thought was best for the picture. For the marriage. For the new family. For the reputation. For the room full of people applauding them. They did what they thought was best for everything. Except the child standing at the curb. And once I understood that, I stopped waiting for an apology big enough to rebuild what they broke. Some doors do not reopen. Some families do not become safe. Just because the truth finally enters the room. I wanted something quieter. A life that did not require me to disappear for anyone's comfort. A home where no one packed my things into trash bags. A job where I could help someone else keep their name on the page. A brother I could know slowly. Without pretending the past was clean. An aunt who still labeled every folder. Like the world might fall apart without proper tabs. A retired security guard named Ruth. Who sent me birthday cards with terrible jokes. And always signed them. Still, your witness. That became family to me. Not blood alone. Not public photos. Family became the people who kept the original, when everyone else preferred the crop. The people who did not need me to be easy. Before they believed I deserved safety. And me? I became family to myself too. For years, I treated myself like someone who needed to prove she was worth keeping. Now I try to speak to myself the way Aunt Lillian spoke to me. The day she read my father's conditions. You do not sign a confession to earn a bed. You do not become small to make someone else look whole. You do not have to vanish just because the picture looks cleaner without you. Sometimes I still dream about the bus station. In the dream, the glass doors are always too heavy. My phone is always dead. The ticket is always damp in my hand. I can hear my father's car leaving. But I cannot make my body move. Then the dream changes. Not every time. But often enough. The door opens. Ruth steps outside. Aunt Lillian is behind her with the blue folder. Owen is there too. Older. Holding the photos he found. And the 15-year-old version of me is not alone at the curb anymore. That is the closest thing to forgiveness I have found. Not forgiving my father. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But forgiving the girl who believed him when he made her feel disposable. She was not disposable. She was undocumented. She was unprotected. She was outnumbered. But she was never what they said she was. My father spent 10 years showing people a picture with me cut out of it, but the truth was never gone. It was just waiting for someone to bring the original back into the light.